Supplemental video 3.1A62B. This is just a supplement to Carriage work that we were discussing. Flip this guy around. There are a couple racks. Nice rack. I'm going to label this video "Nice Rack." I already thought of that. That was my brilliant video title thing that I came up with. Anyway, nice rack. There are a couple of racks on your Olympia machine that can cause you issues if you are having issues with your racks. Now, the main issue that I've seen happen a lot with your Olympia racks is your margin rack, which is this top rack right here that carries your margin select and stopper guys that trigger the bell, and your start position and your end positions. And what happens is because they are only connected, where my pointy, my teacher tool, the pointy guy, because these racks are only secured with one screw right here and then one screw right here, and Olympia even gives you guys an adjustment point. I don't have the back plate, but they even put little cutouts in these tins so you can reach this margin rack, because it is a frequently adjustable point that needs to be addressed if you have these issues that I'm going to be talking about here in a second. So you have access to it. You don't even have to take anything apart to access these rails. But what happens a lot of times is when you finish typing your line and your bell dings and you go to hit and it hits the margin lock, it kind of gets jammed, or it gets stuck, and you can't advance to the next line. You kind of have to either hit the margin release and finish out the line, or what's happening is your escapement is halfway through its travel when the typewriter margin is stopping it, so that you're essentially locking up your escapement halfway in between its job. It can't finish its job, it can't start its job, so you're just locked in position. Now what happens is these, from overuse over time of getting slammed back and forth on these margin stops, it loosens up this carriage and it gets, or this rack, and it gets pushed left or right. So if you do notice that you're having issues with your carriage returns getting stuck or jammed at the very end, it's because your escapement isn't timed with this margin rack. And to time it, you'll just crack these loose. I don't know if I can do it with one hand. It might be too tight. I don't want to strip out this screw. Yeah, I can't do it with one hand, guys. So you'll have to take my word on it. Oh, there it goes. Unscrew this guy. Just need a bigger hammer, bigger boat. Okay, crack that loose. So both sides are loose, and now you see it has wiggle room. You can go left and right, up and down, but you're mainly concerned with your left and right action, because your left and right action time your stopper, your end stop, to your escapement. So if you're out of time it by adjusting those. Now back on the back here, where we're talking about racks, a lot of typewriters have tab rack issues, and your tab rack is easy to find. It has the tab stops on it. Sometimes it'll have the automatic or the key set tabulator adjustments, like on the SM4 where there's click buttons. It's the same idea. But your tab rack can be off, up and down, vertically, left and right. And when you press your tab key, you'll see I'm pressing the tab key, and as I press the tab key, this little guy lifts up, and it simultaneously disengages your escapement, so you get the freewheeling action, and you will hit your tab stops like so, and then it'll stop. And then you push it again, and it does that. It just interferes. It just goes until it stops, till it hits a stop. On SM4s and later models, SM7s that have the key set tabulator buttons, the plus and minus clicky guys, this rack position is very important to this whole system and how it works. So you have to really adjust those SM4s and SM7s using this screw on the bottom of the machine, and it's connected. They gave you another cutout as well, Olympia did, so you don't even have to take anything apart to make your adjustments. But you would loosen that rack and adjust it to time your tab systems. If you're running into tab issues where your tab rack is grinding, or if you're hearing a tooth sound like it's jittery, and that's probably because your SM4 tab rack is out of position. It's either too low on one side or both sides. So your rack positions are key for optimal use, either with your tab system or your margin return system. There's one more rack on this machine, the SM machines, and that is your main carriage rack. Oops, let's get to the other side. Your main toothed rack on the carriage, which is underneath the carriage on the bottom, and it is held on with these two screws right here. And this rack is adjustable as well. There's on the opposite side, there's going to be the same screw points. And if your carriage is making a grinding sound, a lot of times it's the silent return spring, which we've already discussed. We'll go into silent return spring. That'll be a separate video. But if it isn't the silent return spring, or your machine doesn't have a silent return spring, and you're getting grinding issues, or you're getting a flying carriage where your carriage is not catching and it's just zipping across, then there's a good chance that your carriage rack is out of adjustment. And that can be adjusted by breaking these two bolts loose or cracking them loose. And then you can raise this up and down so it meshes better with the main heart of the machine, the escapement gear. And when you make this adjustment, you'll hear it, the actual sound of the machine change. If it's out of adjustment, it'll sound noisy. If you have this in correct position, it'll be smooth. If it's how it's supposed to be. All right, that is that. I'm going to disclaimer this one also, guys, because just because I'm telling you guys this is an adjustment point, you don't need to adjust it unless you are having issues, major issues with your carriage system. And the grinding noise is one of them. The flying carriage, I'm trying to get this back on the desk. The flying carriage where your carriage you'll be typing just fine, and then it'll get to a point where it just zips past it. And that is normally what I tell folks is a carriage rack issue, and you'll have to look under the machine for your carriage rack on your machine and make the appropriate adjustments. And that's counting out a fully clean machine, guys, because remember, we're dealing with clean machines. Flying carriages, dirty escapements, dirty pawls down in the main machine, that will all cause it too. So nice rack. We went over 3 different rack position points in the Olympia, and hopefully I didn't breeze over it too blasé, I guess, but I'm just kind of trying to get as much information out there as possible on these, in hopes that it might help somebody in the future if you're running into issues. So I'll tag this video appropriately: rack issues, carriage issues, and you'll be able to find that in the future. All right, guys, thank you for tuning in, and we will see you on the next one.